Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Victoria, and in today's video we'll be making a shift dress with flare sleeves. So for this project I'll be using this stretchy crepe polka dot fabric, and I have about 2 yards of this. So let's get started. So I'll begin by cutting out the front part of the dress before moving to the back. So I won't be using any pattern for this project. I'll be taking my measurements directly on the fabric. So first I folded my fabric in two towards the wrong side, and the folded end is my center front. So before I start placing my measurements, I'll be drawing a horizontal line from the top of the fabric, which will become my shoulder line, and I'll be taking all my vertical measurements from there. I'm starting with my bust point at 11 inches. So I'm marking 11 inches downwards from the shoulder line. I'll be marking that point across before squaring it out with my ruler. Next, I'll be marking my waistline, which is 16 inches downwards from the shoulder line. I'll be marking out that point across as well, and then squaring it out with my ruler. So now I have the bust line and the waistline, and I'll be moving on to the hip line, which will be marked 9 inches downwards from the waistline. So from my waistline I'm going down by 9 inches, marking that point across, and then I'll square it out with my ruler. So the last vertical measurement I'll be marking is the full length of my dress, and I'll be going with 41 inches plus 1 inch for folding. That's 42, or you can go for your desired length. So from the shoulder line I'm marking 42 inches downwards, and then going with my ruler to square that point out. So now that that's done, I'll be going back to work on my neckline and shoulder slope. For the neckline I'm using 3 inches for the neck width. So I'm marking 3 inches away from the center front along the shoulder line. And for the neck depth I'm marking 6.5 inches downwards from the shoulder line. I'm going for a V-shaped neckline, but you can go for whatever shape you choose. So I'm just going in with my ruler and I'm connecting the 2 points together. Now for the shoulder slope I'm marking half of my shoulder measurement along the shoulder line away from the center front. I'll be going down by 1 inch from that point before connecting it in a slant to meet the neckline. Now it's time to create the armhole, and to do that I'll begin by marking my upper chest line measurement, which is 8 inches downwards from the end of the shoulder slope. Now using my ruler I'll be connecting the 2 points together, and then I'll extend the upper chest line to the other end like so. And now it's time to create the front armhole, and to do that first I'll find the midpoint of the vertical line connecting the shoulder slope to the upper chest line, and from that point I'll be going in by 3/4 of an inch. Next, on the upper chest line I'll be marking my bust circumference divided by 4. I'm marking it away from the center front. And now I'm ready to draw out my front armhole by connecting the upper chest line to the shoulder slope using my French curve like so. Now that I'm done creating the neckline and the armhole, it's time to insert my horizontal measurements divided by 4. I already marked my bust circumference on the upper chest line, so now I'm just going to be adding 2 inches, one for ease and one for sewing allowance. And then I'll move over to my waistline and my hip line, and I'll be marking my waist and hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll be adding 2 inches to that. And for the hemline I'll be using the same measurements I have for the hip line. So now that I'm done inserting my horizontal measurements, it's time to connect all these points together. First I'll be going in with my straight ruler before going in with my French curve along the waistline and the hip line. And when I'm all done, I'll go ahead to cut out the front panel and use it to create the back. So for the back, again I folded my fabric in two and placed the front piece on top of it. As you can see, I also left 1 inch allowance along the center back for the zipper. Now I'm going to be using the front piece as a guide to cut out the back. So I'm starting with the armhole, which is not as deep as the front armhole, and then I'll be cutting along the sides and the hemline, which will be exactly the same as the front piece. Now I'm just creating small notches along the hip line and waistline before moving over to cut out the necklines. So the neck width for the back and front piece will be exactly the same minus the allowance for the zipper, but for the back neck depth I'll be going down by 1.5 inch. I'll be connecting the 2 points together like so. I'll cut that out and also cut out the front neckline. Now I'm just opening up the back piece along the center back, and that will be all. Now it's time to start assembling the pieces together, and I'll begin with the neckline. I cut out the facing that I'll be using to turn the neckline, but you can use a bias tape as well. So this is the front piece, and I'll be placing the facing to the fabric, right sides facing each other. I'll sew along the neckline and turn it out. I also cut out facings for the back pieces as well, and I'm placing it to the fabric, right sides facing each other, sewing along the back neckline and turning it over as well. So here's what the front neckline looks like after turning it with the facing. You can see how neat it looks. And here's the back neckline as well. I also made an understitch on the facing fabric. I did the same for the other back piece as well, and now I'm going to be placing the two back pieces together, right sides facing each other, and I'll be stitching along the center back to join the pieces together while leaving a few inches to attach the zipper. So now that the back pieces are joined together, it's time to join the shoulders. So I'm placing the back pieces to the front, right sides facing each other, and I'll be stitching along the shoulder slope. After which I'll be working on the sleeves. So the sleeves for this dress is going to be a flare sleeve, and to begin working on it, I cut out my fabric in a 15 by 15 square shape. I have two pieces here, one for each armhole, and I'm going to be folding them twice. So this is the first folding and this is the second one. I'll be pinning it down to hold it in place, and then I'm going to take the measurement from one end, and when I took the measurement I had 7.5, so I'm going to be marking 7.5 from that point all the way around. Now I'll trim out the excess, remove the pins and open it up. And then I'll be taking the measurement of that folded end, and I had 15 inches. I'll be marking the midpoint of that 15 inches, and from that point I'll be going up by about 2.5 inches. And then on one side of the midpoint I'll be marking 6.5 inches like so. Usually you're supposed to mark half of your armhole measurement, which is about 7 to 8 inches, but this fabric is stretchy, so I marked 6.5. Now I'm going to be creating sort of like a semicircle from that point to the midpoint. So the 2.5 I went up by is like a guide to how high I want the semicircle to be. So I've cut it out, and now I'm creating a notch around the midpoint because that will be the center of the flare sleeve. I'm going to open up the other end, and that will be all. So here is what the flare sleeve looks like when it's fully open. I have two pieces here, one for each side. Now I'm going to be using a bias tape to finish off the outer end, while this smaller side will be attached to the armhole. So I've done that, and here's what it looks like. Here's one piece, and I did the same for the other one as well. So now it's time to attach the sleeve to the armhole, and I'm going to begin by matching the notch I created on the sleeve to the shoulder line of the dress. So I'll be placing the sleeve to the dress, right sides facing each other, and I'll be stitching around the armhole. So first I'll be pinning it down to show you what it will look like after stitching. So this is how the flare sleeve will look like after stitching it to the armhole and turning it over. So now I'll be taking this over to the machine to sew along the armhole. I'll do the same for the other side as well, and then I'm going to be sewing along the sides, finishing up the hemline and attaching the zipper, and that will be all for the dress. So guys, after giving it a good press, here's the final look. This is a very simple and free wear, and it was very easy to make. So we've come to the end of this tutorial, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll be seeing you in my next video.